I'm Emma, and this is my persuasion speech. America is plagued with many issues, some big and some small. Arguably, one of the largest issues in the US today is poverty. Poverty, as you know, is when a person is extremely poor, making life very difficult in many ways. Poverty is a huge issue in the United States, and it has been for centuries, pretty much since it was founded. But if we never reflect or even try to fix poverty, it will never go away, which is why, as Americans, we need to make a change to eliminate poverty. I am trying to reach out to all the Americans who have never experienced or seen poverty. A lot of Americans live in poverty, but there's also a lot of Americans who haven't even witnessed it. I want you to hear how poverty can be extremely detrimental and life-threatening to people and many Americans, and hope you would want to change. In this speech, I will talk about poverty itself, its causes, and the solutions that we as Americans can do. Starting off, poverty is a huge problem, but one of the aspects in poverty is about not having enough money. And this can be seen through everything. Did you know that the World Bank defines poverty as living only on a couple of dollars? The World Bank is this large organization / bank that finances to all the different countries, so you can take loans and you can be in debt with them. It's pretty much a bank for countries, but it's still a huge thing. And in the Eurasian Review, it talks about how poverty is defined by the World Bank as only having a couple of dollars. It was published October 11, 2021, and the title name is called Poverty and Its Causes in Iran, Analysis. I know I'm talking about America, but it's just in general how poverty is defined by the World Bank. And it states, the World Bank defines poverty in absolute terms. The bank defines extreme poverty living on less than $1.90 a day, and moderate poverty as less than $3.10 a day. It's crazy to think how people can live with only maybe a couple dollars a day, because I think a lot of people, including myself, don't think a couple dollars is a lot. You know, we tip a couple dollars to people, we buy vending machines with a couple of dollars. It's not like a large expense to us, but to these people, it's an entire day's worth. Another way poverty is a huge issue with not having enough money is all about food. It's really sad to see many people and their families cannot be able to afford food. In Why Poverty Isn't Developed in the USA, published by Indian Muslim Observer on September 7th, 2014, it tells us the significant numbers about people who couldn't afford food. Indian Muslim Observer is pretty much this group of people who are Indian and Muslim who look on the world's issues today. And they just question why poverty is developed in the United States. And when you look and you think about America, you think of a very rich country. So why do you think about this? And they list off some very interesting facts about many families and people that couldn't be affording to eat. And it states, according to the White House figures, while a majority of Americans were not always able to afford food last year were adults, 16 million children also went hungry with this, with 360,000 households reporting their kids skipped meals or did not eat an entire day because there was not enough money. I think it's really sad to see that people are not even able to get the amount of nutrients and the things that they need to survive. You know, we can survive with a lot of luxuries. We don't need an iPhone. We don't need an iPad. We don't need a computer. We don't need everything. But the one thing we do need as humans to survive is food. And I think it's really sad how we can't help them in any situation with that. Okay. And then another problem with poverty is the access to proper medical treatment. Having the ability to have proper medical treatment does go hand in hand with not having enough money. This is because many people can't afford proper health care and the actual treatment. And it's not only just about money, though. In most poor areas where people who live in poverty have little to no access to proper health care facilities, as well as make the time to get off to get treatment. People are always working to try to support their families, so they can't get off and go to these doctors' offices and get their food they need. And this leaves many people with diseases and illnesses because they can't afford it or don't have access to it. This can be further explained in Poverty in the United States, published by Debt.org on October 12, 2021, and it states, the life expectancy of the richest 1% in the U.S. was 4.6 years longer than the poorest 1% for men and 10.1 years for women, according to 2016 report by the Journal of American Medical Association. I think it's crazy that there's almost like a decade and a half that people, these really rich people, live longer than the poorer people, which I don't think that's very fair, in my opinion. Why should they be able to live longer than anybody else, you know? It's because they have money and the proper money to have all the medical treatments and everything they need. And I just find that very sad. Moving on to the actual causes of poverty, the first one's actually lack of education. Many Americans take advantage of having a proper and helpful education. Although Americans are forced to go to school, many drop out to support their families, making them have an inadequate education for many jobs. In 10 Common Roots of Poverty, published by Human Rights Career on May 11, 2020, it discusses how people are not able to get out of poverty because of the lack of education received by them. I think that's just crazy because I'm very educated and I'm going to college right now, and it's just very sad to see. And the article states, the second root cause of poverty is the lack of education. Poverty is a cycle, and without education, people aren't able to better their situations. According to UNESCO, UNESCO, I'm not sure which one they pronounce it, over 170 million people could be free of extreme poverty if they only had basic reading skills. I never realized how much my education I've taken for granted. To think about how I can just read basic things, I never really thought that was such an important aspect in my life, but it can just help so many people, as it said before. Most jobs do require you to be able to read, and I just never thought so many people didn't really know how to read. And another cause of poverty is actually inequality. Inequality in terms of poverty means not having the proper resources to help get out of poverty. This can be through the lack of local charities, or even not be able to voice their own opinion in community meetings or even in voting. And I say voting because if they don't know how to register, they don't have time to register, or they don't have the money to register, they're not able to put in their vote for their community or for themselves, you know? Not everyone's going to have the same idea, but generally speaking, if there are going to be people living in a poorer area, they should have a say in what they do. And this idea is explained further in the top 9 causes of global poverty, published by Interaction on March 3rd, 2020. And it states, there are many different types of inequality in the world, from economic to social inequalities like gender, caste systems, or tribal affiliations. But no matter the inequality, it generally means the same thing: unequal or no access to the resources needed to keep or lift a family out of poverty. For example, the voices of certain people or groups might not be heard in community meetings, meaning they don't get a say in important decisions. I also take for granted how I'm able to vote and how I'm able to have a say in a lot of things, but it's not okay for those people to not have that voice, you know? And we're America, you know, you say, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of pretty much everything. We're free, you know? And people are still restricted in what they can do and what they can say. Now, on a lighter note, let's talk about some solutions and how us Americans and the nation can actually help poverty. And I'm going to start off with national solutions. And one of the best and largest ways to help poverty is actually on a national scale. The U.S. government is the one organization that can help all of the U.S.'s poverty by passing laws and creating taxes. Now, I'm not saying any other organizations or ourselves can help, but the U.S. government is the one large organization that is just really, really, really can make a huge change, because it goes everywhere in America, not just like a certain town or something. In this article called "The United States Child Tax Credit and Child Poverty in the 8th District," published by Thai News Service, October 27, 2021, it talks about the new child tax credit and how it is helping alleviate people from poverty for many people. And I think it's important. It was just a recent new thing, and especially with COVID and everything, it is just so important that families can support kids, especially with having more money. And this article states the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 boosted the child tax credit for 2021 up to $3,000 per child between ages 6 and 17 and up to $3,600 per child under 6, with the entire credit being refundable. Sorry. With this change to the CTC, the percentage of children living below the poverty threshold will drop an estimated 40%. The boost to benefits and the new way to distribute payments could help families increase and smooth their income over the years, Rubunton and Isaacson explained. 40% of families could not be in poverty. I think that's just crazy. It's really close to half, so I think that's just a really good step to trying to make the nation just a better and more, just to make people live a better life. And then another national solution is actually raising Americans' hourly wages. And it would help a lot because they are getting more money. And when you think about that, it's kind of obvious, but if you're a single parent with a child and you make $10 an hour, it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough for all the life expenses you need, like rent, bills, food, clothes, transportation, medications, and there's so much more. And people are barely getting by even with this. What if emergency happens? What if the child got sick in some way? What if you got into a car accident? You probably won't have a savings or a backup plan when you're living in poverty because you're living day by day. You can't afford healthcare, or you can't afford the actual treatment. And this can lead to so many things. It can lead to massive debt, which is just a whole other situation with people not being able to pay off a debt, and they can't buy anything else or do anything else until they pay off that debt. And they could even be even more hurt because they might just leave the hospital not getting the proper treatment because they can't afford it. And if the American government raises the overall minimum wage in everywhere in America, it could be really beneficial because these people can actually afford to save money and be able to afford healthcare. Now, something as we just normal people can do is actually participating in local community charities. A lot of these charities runs food banks and various other donation drives. Even donating helps if you don't want to participate. And actually, an example I'm going to talk about is actually in Scotland, and I think it's a very interesting, it's a very large kind of charity that this guy is doing. And it's in Here's How Milton Keynes plans to help 23,000 children living in poverty here. And it was published October 26, 2021 by Milton Keynes, Kenney's citizens. And it states, the projects include working to open over 10 community food larders in partnership with SOFEA, Community Fridge and Food Bank Extra, to ensure the children don't go hungry. A school uniform scheme has been launched where uniforms can be bought at a reduced cost. And a pilot child care deposit scheme is being run to support parents in careers who want to work, but the struggle with upfront childcare cost. That's just another important thing that I think that's really, really, really important because they can help children. They are helping families, and just participating in, you can participate really in it. You can have a do distributed positive. I went to a soup kitchen one time. My mother made some food. You can make food for these people. You can do all those things. But if you're I'm busy, I don't have time, just donate your stuff. Donate the stuff you don't want anymore. If you have leftovers, or if you have a garden and there's you get a lot of vegetables and you don't know what to do with, donate them to the food banks in the local communities, because that's how we can help people, by giving them the food they need, the clothes they need, and everything they need without spending their own money because they can't afford it. Another personal solution that we can do is through voting. And when you vote, you can make certain laws or bills pass that can help people living in poverty. And I know that's kind of obvious, but voting is a right that we should take advantage of to help people in poverty. And another reason why voting is helpful is because you can go against certain laws and bills that make poverty worse in America, and you're wondering, well, why would anyone want to make poverty worse in America? It's not ever directly said, but if they're going to be raising taxes for the poor or something like that, or higher living wages or higher weight, no wait, sorry, or having to spend more money on groceries and everything like that, it is an issue. And I think it's really crazy that that can happen. And you being able to the right to vote, you can actually, go against these things and make a change. So, to conclude, many Americans suffer living in poverty, which is why we Americans should help them. Whether it's through charities or voting, it is our duty that we help our fellow Americans live the life that they are entitled to live, especially when we live in one of the richest countries in the entire world. I'm Emma Thorpe, and thank you so much for watching my persuasion speech.